Imagine waking up one Monday to find coffee has become a luxury, supermarket prices have skyrocketed, and your smartphone stopped working overnight. This isn't a sci-fi dystopia. It's the real scenario that could unfold if certain countries cut ties with the United States today. We're not talking about diplomatic allies, but vital pieces, without which the American giant simply couldn't stand. Get ready for a journey connecting your daily life to decisions made thousands of miles away. Ready to discover who truly holds up the superpower? 10. Brazil. In the Brazilian dawn, a harvester moves through waves of green soybeans, soaking up the humid warmth of the Cerrado. Every ton that enters the silo has an invisible destination in Kansas, where it fattens chickens, cows, and pigs, which in turn stock the refrigerated aisles of the Midwest. Brazil doesn't replace U.S. agriculture. It complements it like a twin kidney, filtering demand spikes to keep the nation's diet steady. 40% of green coffee is just the tip of the iceberg. Valle Cacao refines chocolate bars crafted in Pennsylvania, Sao Paulo oranges hide in school juices, and sugarcane ethanol blends with Texan gasoline, its octane cleaning emissions under the EPA's watchful eye. Imagine an agricultural plague devastating Brazil's harvest. Global soybean prices surge 115% in 3 weeks. Pig farms in North Carolina slaughter animals due to feed shortages, milk prices rise, dragging cheeses, pizzas, and snacks with it. The impact doesn't stop there. The Amazon basin holds 1 in 5 compounds in U.S.-funded cancer trials. Without bioprospecting agreements, the pipeline of molecules dries up and clinical trials stall. In the low-cost space race, Brazil offers Alcantara's near-equatorial launch site, giving U.S. rockets a natural boost that saves fuel. Cut that access, and every kilo in orbit costs 25% more. When a hurricane looms in the Caribbean, climate models combine U.S. satellite data with Amazonian stations to feed algorithms deciding evacuations in Louisiana. Close Brazil's tap, and we're reading the sky with fewer pixels, like switching from HD to analog TV in the 21st century. The geopolitical window widens if Beijing whispers infrastructure deals for lithium and niobium. Chinese firms already drill in Serra do Espinhaço and offer to build roads straight to Atlantic ports. If Brazil turns that wheel, the Washington-Sao Paulo-Houston triangle breaks, financial flows shift, and climate diplomacy loses an ally guarding the forest that breathes for all. Brazil is the valve balancing food inflation, green energy stability, and pharmaceutical margins. Without that buffer, the average American table would feel the whip of prices that today only haunt economists' nightmares. 9. Germany. In the dim light of a Wolfsburg factory, a robotic arm installs LiDAR sensors that will soon fly to Michigan, ready to turn an SUV semi-autonomous. Those sensors carry firmware written in Stuttgart and are validated by AI algorithms trained on Bavarian servers. Remove that link, and U.S. assembly lines become functional museums with no visitors. Germany doesn't just export shiny parts. It exports the discipline of quality processes that make its fine engineering the metronome of global industry. Bayer and BASF notify Iowa farmers quarterly about new molecules replacing banned pesticides. If that chemical correspondence stops, crop yields slide back half a decade. The consumer feels it at the checkout with pricier tomatoes and steak becoming a Sunday treat. On the medical side, Walgreens relies on insulin made in Leverkusen. The FDA would need 5 years to certify a replacement plant if those vials vanished. But dependency extends to military software. The cybersecurity suite protecting drones and missiles at NATO bases updates from Munich data centers. Each patch seals doors state-sponsored hackers would try to pry open in hours. Without that shield, GPS satellites guiding civilian planes could be vulnerable to spoofing, risking air traffic chaos. The U.S. energy transition dreams of extra-large wind blades designed in the North Sea. Without Siemens Gamesa turbines arriving disassembled at Texas ports, Green megawatts miss climate deadlines, and reliance on liquefied natural gas lingers. Germany also brokers green bonds bought by U.S. pension funds. Without that liquidity, Arizona hydrogen projects lose steam. Berlin is a cog of metal, medicine, and megawatts spinning inside the American machine. Remove it, and sparks fly everywhere. 8. India. Your bank app confirms a 3 a.m. payment thanks to a Hyderabad team that debugged the API while you slept. That competitive pricing keeps banking fees in check. A digital blackout in India would turn simple transfers into error-ridden mazes, and rebuilding the service domestically would cost 4 times more. On pharmacy shelves, generic atorvastatin costs pennies because its active ingredient crossed the Atlantic as white powder packed in sterile Gujarat containers. Without that import, the public health system would spend billions more, pushing private insurance prices up. Picture the USS Nimitz advancing in the Indian Ocean, escorted by a refueling tanker from Goa. That logistics relies on agreements with the Indian Navy, vital to counter Chinese submarines prowling the Malacca Strait. A geopolitical tilt pulling New Delhi toward Moscow or Beijing would stretch U.S. naval supply lines, raising patrol costs per hour. Gems cut in Surat flood Manhattan's luxury jewelers, but also supply the semiconductor industry with synthetic diamonds for heat sinks. Without that input, power wafers overheat, and electric mobility loses reliability. The U.S. premium textile industry buys Tamil Nadu combed cotton looms for organic clothing lines. A cut would force a shift to pricier markets with worse environmental standards, jeopardizing ESG goals demanded by California investors. India is a demographic bridge. Over 100,000 Indian students pursue STEM graduate degrees in U.S. universities, fueling an innovation ecosystem that yields patents and startups across the Pacific. Migration restrictions would slow that exchange, opening a gap in the AI race. India doesn't just fill jobs, it fertilizes ideas. Without that sap, Silicon Valley's speed drops to mid-gear. 7. Japan. Consider the microcontroller timing every airbag deployment in your car. Its ceramic protective layer is made in Kagoshima. Without it, Detroit crash tests fail, and each recall costs millions. Japan's Fukui Prefecture photochemical resins meet 80% of global demand. Cancel them, and TSMC, Samsung, and Intel's new Ohio foundries limp. Their absence is the difference between a 3-nanometer chip and a forced return to 14-nanometer processes, a technological time warp. At Mayo Clinic Microscopy Labs, precision lenses come from Nikon Healthcare. Replacing them would raise hospital costs and slow cancer diagnoses. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy relies on Japanese shipyards for rapid destroyer repairs against North Korea. Rerouting to Pearl Harbor would cause critical delays. Japanese culture also fuels GDP. Nintendo, Sony, manga, and anime generate licenses. Hollywood adapts into blockbusters. Without that flow, streaming giants lose content to retain Gen Alpha. Japan supplies rare earths recycled from e-waste in Kobe, a green insurance for the energy transition. The archipelago, born of seismic resilience, exports anti-earthquake know-how to California engineering firms. Without these agreements, new U.S. infrastructure would be more exposed. Japan is a micro, macro, and cultural cog. Removing it is like stripping a ship of its compass in a stormy sea. 6. Canada. A train loaded with bitumen crude halts at the border because Alberta pipelines hit a diplomatic snag. Gulf refineries switch diets, find lower yields, and diesel suffers, making freight transport pricier. Saskatchewan potash vanishes, and Iowa farmers cut fertilization, losing yield and driving up corn ethanol prices. Canada supplies uranium to Arizona and Virginia reactors for clean electricity. Cut that flow, and utilities turn to gas or coal, clashing with state climate agendas and hiking household power bills. At the border, Mountie and federal agency cooperation stops criminal cells trafficking guns north and fentanyl south. Breaking that exchange opens smuggling corridors, multiplying violence in mirror cities like Detroit and Windsor. AI Industries linked Toronto labs with Silicon Valley experts in a corridor blending TN visas and cross-border venture capital. Without that synergy, talent drifts to Europe or Asia. In boreal forests, birch pulp becomes toilet paper in Wisconsin factories. The pandemic showed how roles vanish without it. Shared freshwater feeds Niagara border hydroelectric plants. Losing that flow would force gas turbine installations. Canada is leisure, mirror, and firewall. Breaking it would inflate essentials and fortify the near-invisible northern border with metaphorical walls as costly as those debated in the South. 5. Mexico. In a Querétaro industrial park, a jet turbine is assembled under bilingual engineers' watch. Days later, it flies to Connecticut to join a Boeing fuselage. Without that part, the plane doesn't fly, and commercial routes shrink. Every iPhone includes a component soldered in Reynosa. Without it, the next model's launch delays, and the stock market feels it. Avocados have gone from exotic niche to staple, with 70% from Mexican orchards. An embargo would spark protests in supermarket aisles and restaurants banking on guacamole. Mexico sends 6,000 food trucks daily along I-35. If customs halt, the cold chain breaks, and food rots in yards. California's power mix includes energy from Baja California and Sonora. Without that cushion, August demand peaks would collapse the grid. Auto parts workshops employ 1 million workers, sustaining delicate social peace. Losing those jobs would trigger migration, pressuring politics on both sides of the border fence. Navistars, Freightliners, and Teslas use harnesses and batteries built in the Bajío. Without them, the electrical chain breaks. Already tense anti-drug cooperation would crack, turning the opioid epidemic into a tsunami. Mexico isn't a backyard. It's the basement, kitchen, and main hallway of the continental home. Block it, and the whole building creaks. 4. South Korea. Amazon notices its cloud latency spikes by 100 milliseconds. Tracing it reveals a fire in an Icheon fab park halted DRAM production. Suddenly, photos upload slower. Telehealth consultations lag, and high-frequency traders lose micro-advantages worth millions. LG Chem's Ho Chang campus produces battery cells with densities. U.S. gigafactories won't match for years. Without them, the Star Electric pickup fails promised ranges and loses orders. Seoul is one of 3 nodes sharing missile data with the Pentagon. If that link drops, analysts lose precious minutes confirming a North Korean launch. The cultural wave drives creative exports. K-dramas prop up Netflix ratings and licenses. A cut would lower subscriptions and ad revenue. South Koreans lead hydrogen green patents, vital for California's climate plan. Without that know-how, the transition slows, and Los Angeles breathes more smog. South Korea is hard drive, battery, and pop library. Removing that drive leaves the U.S. without memory or artistic spark. 3. Saudi Arabia. A Riyadh statement cuts production by 1 million barrels, and light crude calming U.S. refineries soars. Gas prices near $10 on the West Coast, and inflation erases wage gains. Prince Sultan Air Base hosts drones guarding undersea data cables from sabotage. Without that cover, a cut cable slows transatlantic internet. Aramco owns half of Motiva, a refinery turning crude into jet fuel for airlines. Close the Saudi tap, and Dallas runs dry for planes. Saudi capital injects liquidity into Silicon Valley via Vision Fund. Its absence cools deep tech innovation aiming for quantum chips. In religious diplomacy, Saudi influence moderates tensions with Qatar and the UAE, which could affect U.S. naval bases. Without that mediation, the Gulf Board tilts toward less Washington-friendly actors. Saudi Arabia is an oil thermostat, military runway, and venture capital wallet. Lower that thermostat, and engines freeze while domestic politics heat up more than any election campaign. By the way, we've created the only travel guide that compiles proven strategies to optimize your budget, manage visas, and explore residency, job, and cultural opportunities abroad. With 7 volumes packed with practical tips and nearly 400 pages, it costs less than a Starbucks coffee. Hurry, because in a few days we'll more than double the price. Check the community post for more info, and I'll leave the link below. 2. China. A Long Beach port sees idle cranes because Chinese container ships reroute to Indonesia. Target stores receive half their usual boxes and rearrange aisles with signs explaining delays. In Montana, a rare earth mine struggles to ramp up but needs 3 years, while military planes wait for magnets that never arrive. Store after store empties of low-cost electronics, and consumers delay purchases, denting GDP. The Treasury sees bond interest rates climb, and the White House must choose between cutting social spending or taking on costly debt. California's solar grid slows installations because Chinese panels stop clearing customs. To compensate, more fossils burn, and the state misses green targets, triggering fines and lawsuits. U.S. universities collaborate with Shenzhen on genetic research. Without it, CRISPR therapy patents stall. Boeing factories rely on carbon fiber parts woven in Xiamen. Without them, planes miss delivery schedules, piling up airline penalties. China is factory, miner, customer, and creditor. Cutting each roll is like pulling the wiring sculpture powering Times Square and expecting it to keep shining. 1. Taiwan. In TSMC's clean room, a sensor detects drones over the strait, and a crisis protocol halts machines worth $10 billion. In Phoenix, a new foundry can't produce 3-nanometer nodes, relying on photolithography only Taiwan masters. NVIDIA's California inventories deplete in 22 days. Without new batches, AI training data centers cut capacity, slowing the chatbot boom affecting finance, marketing, and governments. Ford's Tennessee plant halts electric pickup production because battery controllers come from Taichung. The Pentagon activates contingency protocols, assessing which systems can revert to older chips. Bottlenecks emerge in satellites, radars, and missiles, shrinking technological superiority to a temporary tactical edge. Wall Street volatility spikes because low-latency algorithms rely on Taiwanese hardware for microsecond trades. Without it, funds lose edge and pull market capital. The rupture shakes undersea cables handling SWIFT transactions. New York banks turn to pricier, less secure satellites, opening cyber attack vulnerabilities. Taiwan is Cortex and Synapse. When it darkens, the U.S. digital body flickers, trapped in a prior century, still smart but without the silicon soul to keep pace with the future. Return to the drone crashing in the desert. Now you know the invisible wires holding its wings, wires crossing jungles, plantations, tundras, deserts, and distant seas. The United States stands on a web woven by 10 nations that seem far but pulse in every click and coffee sip. Tomorrow, one of those hearts could skip a beat, shaking shelves, pumps, and radars. Understanding that fragility reminds us that superpower is, in truth, a plural. If this journey through the hidden anatomy of power captivated you, and you want to keep decoding the levers moving your daily life, show your support with a like and subscribe. The invisible has never been so close.